everybody, Dan Illman along with Mike Beer, David Grening, getting set for the DRF race of the day for Friday, November the 3rd. It's race number 8 at Santa Anita, the Grade 1 $2 million Breeders' Cup Juvenile at 1 mile and a 16th. Before we get to the analysis, remember that DRF has those player packages available at shop.drf.com. 3 separate tiers, all your favorite handicapping products at discounted prices. Here's the field for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Bob Baffert has 3 in here, but it's really sort of a classic East versus West Coast situation, isn't it?
It is. I mean, Baffert's won the race 5 times. He's got 3 in here. Pletcher's won the race 3 times. He's got 3 in here. You have a couple other trainers who's won this race as well. Way back when Mike Maker won it with Hansen, I think back in 2010 or 11. Yeah. He's got the Wine Steward in here, an interesting horse. And then it was only a few years ago, I guess 6 years ago, 6 years ago, with Chad Brown won it with Good Magic, who, like General Partner, who he has in this race, was second in the Champagne.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting race, regardless of who is training these horses. I mean, there are several horses in there who they look like they have tons of ability. Trips are going to be very, very important in this race, I think. And
they also have pedigrees to go long.
That's true.
This is the starting point for some of these horses. I would be surprised if we didn't see some of these on the trail next year.
It'll be an interesting pace scenario as well. We'll throw up the Timeform US pace projector for this race. They have it as a red bar, which means it's a fast pace scenario. They have horses like Wind Me Up, the 3, General Partner, the 8, Muth, the 10. Dave, would you be surprised if Prince of Monaco, though, is aggressive out of there?
I wouldn't be. He's fresh, so if he breaks, he's got an inside draw. You know, by this point in the day, you'll know how the track's playing. So I think he has that ability to be forward if it's one of those, hey, you need to be forward to be successful. No, I wouldn't be surprised if he's racing.
I thought he would, even if he doesn't make the lead in here, I think they'll come out running. He could fall into a really good trip in this race, stretching out for the first time. But there are plenty of horses who could go in this race. I mean, General Partner, he's got speed. I wouldn't be surprised. His fierceness is on ascend in this race as he tries to rebound off of a terrible performance last time. The 2 Baffert horses, obviously, they're going to go forward in this race. This pace could get fast.
And you also have Fierceness and Noted, both owned by Mike Rapoli, trained by Todd Pletcher. Not saying he's using him as a rabbit, but what would be the harm if Fierceness goes and Noted stays back and makes a run? Noted's one race on the dirt was an off-the-pace victory against the horse Darnock, full brother to Mage, who came back and won his maiden next out.
Breaking from the rail draw is the really likable New York bred. The number 1, the Wine Steward, Mike Maker, Luis Saez, had his 3-race win streak snapped in the Breeders' Futurity, but Dave lost nothing in defeat.
Now look, it was a pretty strong effort. First time going 2 turns. Second time Open Company did win the Bashford Manor listed sprint stakes at Ellis Park. I thought it was a solid effort for a horse that you thought he could go based on pedigrees by Vino Rosso out of a 200 and serve mare. Gets a nice ground saving spot with the rail, and Luis Saez is 2 for 2 on him. Or, I'm sorry, 1 for 2.
This horse, he's run well in all of his races. He ran really well last time in the Breeders' Futurity. He did get a perfect trip in that race. He got to sit on the rail the entire way, never left it, got through on the inside. Meanwhile, the horse that outfinished him, who's also back in here, wide all the way around the track. I'm not sure that the final margin was quite as close as it really looks.
You're accurate on that, and sort of it was kind of reminiscent of last year's Breeders' Futurity. Forte won with a doggedly, Loggins on the inside, and he had a fight to get the job done. Locked had a fight as well to get the job.
Prince of Monaco is the number 2. He's the first of the 3 Bob Baffert trainees we're going to discuss. He's already a Grade 1 winner by virtue of this race, the Del Mar Futurity, where he was 1-20. He wasn't beating a very strong field, but he did take the measure of his stablemate, Muth, 2 starts back in the Best Pal. And Mike, he was better that day.
He was clearly better that day. Sat back off the pace, came after Muth off the turn, easily outfinished him. The race comes back fast. He doesn't have the benefit of the 2-turn prep that Muth got, and maybe that's all you need to know about these 2 Baffert horses, but I think this horse is pretty good, and if he can get this distance effectively, I think he's a contender in this race.
He's solid, no question, and he ran 2 fast races at Del Mar, which is why Bob Baffert decided to freshen him up a little bit. It worked with Muth. Muth was freshened up and came out and ran a very good race in the American Pharaoh. He's hoping that the same kind of ideology works for Prince of Monaco, who's shown raw ability. Now he just got to show he can carry it.
If you believe in the bigger priced Baffert angle that seems to be prevalent out here occasionally in Southern California, look no further than the 3 Wind Me Up, who was beaten by Muth in the American Pharaoh, carved out the pace that day, Dave, and Muth just ran right by him.
Yeah, now one thing to notice people should pay attention to with Wind Me Up is he got wound up at the gate right before the race, And, you know, that was an issue there for that horse and probably took some of the starch out of him. But to go from a 6 furlong race to the mile 16th race like he did and still run, set the pace and still run second to a more seasoned and probably better horse was a solid enough effort. Bob Baffert he worked him the other day without blinkers. He was thinking of taking the blinkers off. The riders told him to leave them on, so they stay on for this race.
All right, well, it'll be interesting to see. It's good to note that maybe he had a little excuse coming out of the American Pharoah, because just watching that race and seeing how easily Moose handled them, it's hard to like this horse in here, I think.
I don't disagree. I think he's there as a pace prospect in here.
Yeah.
He's probably a race or two away. You know, he might be one that you follow next year or later, you know, maybe in the later races. What's the race at Los Alamitos if they want to go there. But I'm not sure that this is his field he wants to be playing with.
Brad Cox took the blinkers off Timberlake last time out. It resulted in this successful performance in the Great One Champagne, going a one-turn mile. And Timberlake's not really the quickest from the gate, Mike, but he seems to be able to put himself into the race pretty quickly. He worked out a good spot in the pocket, was put on a hard chase after general partner on the turn, and grinded it out. The race was over a wet track, and this horse has yet to go 2 turns. So there are some concerns.
There are. I think he's one of the more talented 2-year-olds in this crop. We'll see how far he wants to go. I wonder if it's a bad sign that Brad Cox elected to bypass the Breeders' Futurity, the 2-turn race, and stay around 1 turn for the Champagne. I didn't really know what to make of that. I would also just point out this horse, very headstrong in his races, especially the last 2. A handful in the Hopeful, really didn't want to rate that day, and I think it cost him. Even last time, Giroux had his hands full with this horse trying to get him to sit.
I thought he was a little bit more relaxed last time with the blinkers off, and I think the reason he showed up in the Champagne as opposed to the Breeders' Futurity was it was better opportunity to win a Grade 1. Yeah. So now he's a Grade 1 winner going forward. An intermission Grade 1 winner is worth a lot of money for these connections. You know, I talked to Brad Cox on Tuesday morning, and he was super high on this horse. He said that the horse is really. His one concern was is he a little concerned about it was over the top. He's hoping that the next days after Tuesday kind of went a little bit smoother than say Tuesday morning. He said I was leading him to the racetrack, but he was taking me to the racetrack. So he's got to cool the jets a little bit.
He's a feel-good horse.
Japanese runners have had more than their share of success on the international stage in major races in recent years, but still the 5 Akoro Neo I think would be a bit of a surprise as a 2-start maiden. Made his debut on grass. No surprise because there's a lot of turf on the female family, but those Bernardinis don't burn it up on the turf. And this horse in his dirt debut going 6 furlongs, when you watch the replay, it looked like he closed like Man of War. Right. Who was he facing?
That's exactly my thought. He did look like he was closing like a freight train, and it was like, wow, look at that. But who was he closing against? Who was he running by? I have no idea. I have a feeling if he beats this group here, we have problems.
Yeah, exactly. It's the old, cutting back from 1.25 miles to 6 furlongs, switching from turf to turf that always leads to big finishes like that, right?
There was one next out winner from that race, but several horses came back and did not run very well. It's a big ask because, as Dave says, this is a quality edition of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. These are talented horses, especially the number 6 Locked, who won the Breeders' Futurity last time out, breaking from the far outside post that day, and he was pretty much hung wide all the way around. Well, as Mike mentioned, the Wine Steward saved ground. My favorite part of the race was that Locked made a thrust at the upper stretch, and the Wine Steward for a brief second turned him back. And then Locked just determinedly wanted it, and he got by that horse at the end. I think it really showed a good sign of maturity.
Yeah, he actually easily sort of put that horse away at the end of the race, I thought, too. I just thought he ran really well last time. This horse ran great first time out. He ran great second time out. I thought he ran great last time. I kind of think, I know this is a tough field. There are a lot of different ways to go. I think he's the horse to beat.
I don't disagree at all. I agree with everything you just said. He's run 3 times. He's run very well each time. And as I mentioned earlier, I thought this reminded me of Forte's race last year. He got into a dogfight and he prevailed, and he was going away late. And I thought the last part of the race was the best part of the race. I think there'll be more pace in this spot here. They went 47 and change there. They ain't going 47 and change here. I think that'll only help him. And he's got experience. The only difference, or the big difference to me between Forte and Locke, was the race was at the Breeders' Cup was at Keeneland last year. He got to stay home, basically stayed at Keeneland, trained there, and ran out of the stall. Here he trained at Keeneland and then came here the other day. So that's he had a ship. That's the only difference. But I think I agree that the morning line has 7-2 and then 3 4-1 shots. Right. I think it'll actually be maybe a little shorter than 7-2. I think he's the one to beat.
Yeah.
The Europeans are taking a shot with the number 7 Cuban Thunder, 30-1 on the morning line. Ran on the all-weather last time out, was third in a little stakes race. He was a zillion to 1 that day. Something tells me he's not the next Johannesburg, but you hate to knock a big price.
Listen, this horse, they tried him in 3 group races over there on the turf. He got beat a million lengths in all of those races. This is not I don't think this is the juvenile field that you want to try first time there.
Right. As Dan mentioned earlier, this is a quality field. There's not just like one horse to beat. There's probably 4, and to just take a shot in here, and so it's a big ask. You know, you do see one horse in here that sort of stands out to you in his past performances, the City of Troy. If he had come for either of the Breeders' Cup races, he would have taken a lot of money and been one that you want to look at, but he was beaten 13 lengths by the City of Troy, so he wasn't really competitive.
Chad Brown sends out the 8 General Partner, a horse that should be up and on the pace. And I like that Chad sort of progressed gradually from a distance standpoint with this horse. 6, 7, a mile, now up to a mile and a 16th. I like what Manny Franco did with this horse in the Champagne. He tried to pull away at just the right time. Timberlake was just better than him on the day, but he seems to be maturing with each and every start.
The thing with this horse is, coming out of the Champagne, Chad wasn't convinced he was even going to come here, and he wanted to watch the horse train. And I guess what he saw in the horse's training convinced him, let's take a shot. Let's see how far he'll go on a dry track. Let's get a little bit better of a line on him now. So he's got to have some confidence in the fact that he's training well enough. It's just that it does look like to be other speed in here, and he might throw one away. He might put another one away, but then here come the closers. It's a really deep field, something that he said even why he was hesitant about coming in the first place.
Yeah, that's what I was most concerned with. I do think this horse is talented enough to go with these horses. I'm worried that this pace is going to be fast. He's really been forward in all of his races, and they've been fast-paced races too. He's been right up there. I'm not sure that he can rate effectively against a field like this especially.
And I don't think they'll be trying those tactics.
Yeah.
The enigma in this field, boys, is the 9 Fierceness, who just ran off the screen in his career debut at Saratoga in a live race. Beaten a couple of next out winners. He was all the rage at odds on in the Champagne. And if you just want to say he didn't break great, the wet track at Aqueduct was different than the wet track at Saratoga, fine. I wonder if there's more to it than that.
I think you have to be worried about that. I wonder how big a price he can really be. 6-1 on the morning line. It feels almost fair to me, if only because his debut, I personally think his debut was that good. He did have trouble to start, and his most, unsettled in the gate. Then he sort of lunged out of there, but just the mildest move around the turn, and he was completely empty.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they don't have a real excuse other than just because they can't use this wet track because he already won on a wet track. But we saw that last year. The Chad Brown horse who won the Champagne last year had run poorly on a wet track in the Hopeful.
Right.
So yes, there's different wet tracks, and some horses take to one, and horses don't take to the other. I do not know what to do with this horse. Adding the difficulty to me is Irad Ortiz rode this horse the first 2 times. John Velasquez is on this horse, and Irad Ortiz is on Noted, who's we're going to talk about in about 3 minutes. That kind of baffled me a little bit. So this whole horse is confusing. I think he's a good horse. I don't know that we see it on Friday.
Muth is the number 10. It's the $2 million son of Good Magic. He's run 3 times. He's earned buyer speed figures of 90 or higher in all 3 of those races, and he passed the 2-turn test in the American Pharoah last time out. And I think the best part of that performance was that I think some folks thought that stretching out maybe he'd be a little bit speed crazy, but he actually relaxed very well off the lead.
We did have a partner on the lead and wind me up, so that kind of worked out well for him. But that partner's in here again, and there's going to be pace. It's just a matter of this horse also was a little baffling because he was shipped to Saratoga to run in the Hopeful, didn't run in the Hopeful, shipped back to run in this race here in the American Pharoah, and he won it, and he did it off a good amount of time. This is what Bob's doing with Prince of Monaco. He's giving him a good amount of time. Now this horse, Muth, is coming back in 4 weeks. Will he be able to replicate that effort again from that outside post with other talented runners in here?
I thought he was maybe the toughest call in the race, if only because, and listen, I'll give him credit for being able to rate and to being able to rate very comfortably in the grade 1 when they stretched him out last time. He had no problem with it because this horse was fast in his debut, and he was fine rating last time. I think that's a good sign for him. I just think he's a really tough call in here. This is a really strong field, and I think he might need another perfect trip if he's going to beat these horses.
I disagree. Completing the field is the number 11 noted. This is the 2-year-old that Irad Ortiz will be riding for Todd Pletcher, a horse that has run 3 times on turf. He's run well in all of those starts. His 1 start on dirt, that was also a good performance. He won the sapling, maybe not the strongest field, although the half-brother to Mage did come back and graduated Keeneland with an 87 Beyer speed.
Listen, he's run well. Certainly, he's run well in all 4 of his starts so far. I don't think you can knock what he's done on the track. Maybe there's a way to look at him and say, he's better than he looks on paper. He better be better than he looks on paper.
Well, also the reason I think they went in here versus the turf is that he looked at the pace scenario in here and thought it was going to be hot. And so the post position being outside there, 11, even though it's a little bit relatively short run in the first turn, shouldn't matter because it's probably just going to drop back and make a run. Now you have to determine, is he the strongest one of the closers? Probably not.
Before we get to our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Big giveaway this time. Subscribe to the DRF YouTube channel, comment on this race, give us your pick for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. You'll be entered to win 1 signed copy of Andy Beyer's Beyer on Speed. Top pick time, Dave.
I went with Locks. Like I said before, he reminds me of Forte in a bit. I think he's going to get a good setup. I was really between him and Timberlake, and I just think that this horse is sort of moving in the right direction. Each race was really good. I think he gives us another solid performance, and I like the way he ran last time.
I'm in complete agreement. I've locked on top as well. Like everything this horse has done so far, I think he's the horse to beat in here. Behind him, I went with 2 maybe sort of outsiders, perhaps outsiders, horses who had something to prove anyway. Prince of Monaco, Fierceness, I'm going to see if he can rebound.
I'm going to go with Timberlake in here, but like these guys, Locked is my other horse. Those are the 2. I really had trouble separating them. I think Timberlake will be a slightly better price. It's the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Really good field of 11 getting set to go 1 mile and a 16th on Friday. Best of luck.